give some consideration to the idea of being your own boss. Like,
Right.
believe in yourself enough
Yeah.
to take that chance. And I'm not saying dive into the deep end on day one. I'm just saying, like, turn up a dimmer and turn down the other one.
Welcome to The Deep Dark, a business podcast where we ask seasoned minds to excavate their history, pulling out the best insights, the hardest moments, and yes, golden epiphanies. Somewhere in the stories and laughs, we all get a little smarter and feel a little better about our own business ventures. Remember, if it didn't hurt, it doesn't count. Your hosts are Chris Lyon and Tim Douglas at the Fidelis Creative Agency. So strap in and get ready as we plunge once again into The Deep Dark.
Today, we're here talking to Austin and Davis from Nail and Key. They are partners in a real estate brokership that is doing really well. They're here to tell us the ins and outs of what it takes to be partners and what success looks like. So dig in and hold on. Here we are in the Deep Dark.
All right, welcome everybody. My name is Davis Scott.
Hey, I'm Austin Wyble. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah.
We're here on the Deep Dark, and we are going to be drinking liquid death, talking about death and life
Yeah.
on today's episode.
We
Memento Mori.
Yeah, thank you, Austin. Hey, so Jeff Scheffelbein wanted me to ask you the opening question.
Oh, can't
Right.
wait.
All right, so I'm going to give this to you, Davis.
Oh, yeah.
When's the last time you took your shirt off in public?
Good question. Is there a specific time that Jeff is maybe referencing?
No, but he told me a great story about him taking his shirt off in public.
Okay.
And so, I was like, what is that? He said, I was like, what is that? He's like, hey, it's a good icebreaker, man. So ask that
Oh, it's a great
question.
icebreaker.
Yeah.
I think every time I see Jeff, there's always an excuse for him to take his shirt off. Well, recently we were at the ranch doing, what does he calls it? He calls it work weekend.
Oh, Mountain Home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Jeff brings some buddies out. There is a lot of Lone Star beer consumed, and we work on the ranch, and we pretend to be
Awesome.
ranch hands for a weekend.
Awesome.
Does it look like we're a couple of ranch hands
Hey,
over here?
everybody in Texas is a ranch hand.
Sure. I will
Yeah.
take that.
There you go. Yeah.
That's polite.
Yes.
That's a good way of putting
Did
it.
you hear that, Grandpa?
Yeah. You can be proud, Pops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, there was. I'm sure there were quite a few moments where shirts were taken off, and
Yeah. Well, that's a good one.
Yeah.
You want to hear the story from Jeff real quick?
oh, I'd love to.
So he says that he's at his business at his business, and he's looking out the window, and all of a sudden the 3-car parking garage collapses.
Okay.
I was like, really?
yeah.
So most of us would go, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this parking garage just collapsed. I better get out of this building and as far as I can get away from. Not Jeff. Jeff goes, I'm ripping off my shirt because I may have to use it as a tourniquet, and I'm going to run down there and save people, right? So he goes climbing through the rubble, and I'm going, yeah, man, just make us all feel inadequate. That's
Oh,
all
I
right.
know.
We'll just move right along. Yeah, we're good. That's really
That's such
great.
a Jeff story.
Such a Jeff story. Yeah.
I can just imagine like the emails and like the memos that had gone out like, hey, at this time, Monday at 7 a.m. we
The
will be
blaster's
demoing.
showing up.
Yeah.
We'll be demoing the
Yeah.
and Jeff just didn't read the email.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He had it's in my mind's eye. I know in the past, in that culture build he did, he would like equate an employee to their perfect superhero.
Okay.
And then he would give them a little placard that had their face superimposed on this superhero, right? And it would sit on your desk of the superhero you were.
That's nice.
And I can think, yeah, I know that he probably knew that was coming, and he probably had his Superman outfit on underneath it. So just so he could rip off, and it would have the big ass,
Totally.
Scheffelbein. But yeah, right? I can see it.
That guy comes to me in the rubble. I'm like, buddy, move on.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, he is. I am thankful for him. He's good at what he
He's a
does.
great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess have you been on his podcast yet, or are you about to?
We're hopefully about to. We keep on bribing him, but we haven't.
Okay.
I don't know if he's received or cashed the checks yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he said it was coming. He told me today it's coming. So
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's great
yeah.
news.
As long as you both sit in the same chair.
We nailed it,
I
man.
can sleep at night.
Yeah. He said it's a very small space that he's doing. It's very
It's so small.
That's
so
true.
small.
Yeah.
That's
He
fun.
does think that Austin and I are the same person.
Oh.
Yeah. But that's to his own credit. Like, we get that a lot.
That's true.
We met each other 8 years ago, longer than that.
How long?
But now it's like for the past 6+ years. Oh yeah, way longer than 8 years. Sorry, for the past 6+ years, we've been like completely inseparable. But it's so funny looking back on it. It's like,
Yeah.
well, when we met, it couldn't have been more of like a hey, bye. It's like, good to meet you.
Well, it's great to have a battle buddy, man.
Yeah.
Life's better.
Yep.
Life's better that
100%.
way, right?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody to cover your 6. That's always a lot of fun. That's
For
good
sure.
stuff. Yeah. So tell me what you doing. Yeah.
Great question.
Around here in East Texas, I guess we say, what the hell, what you doing, right? But what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
What is
What's
it
your
that you're doing?
story?
What's your story?
Yeah. So Austin and I co-own a real estate brokerage up in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
Specifically, it's in Coppell. And
And you have to say that correctly. Coppell.
Coppell.
There
Yes.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
not Coppell.
Not Coppell.
Yeah. When
Okay.
good cops die, they go to Cop Heaven. When bad cops die, they go to Coppell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That, I will
Um,
never forget that nowadays.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
No,
And
when I moved there, I ran into the mayor somehow, and the mayor told me that, and I've never forgotten it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we live there. We live a street away from one another,
Okay.
raising our families side by side, trying to grow a company side by side, and we've been doing that since 2017.
Great. How's it going?
It's going. I mean, it's great. It's
great.
the journey, man.
Life is good.
Couldn't be more different than how it started,
Right.
but in all the best ways.
Now,
True.
you didn't set out to be entrepreneurs, right?
We did not. Yeah, entrepreneurship kind of just showed up at the doorstep.
Yeah.
I had no inclination to be an entrepreneur.
What was the moment? Were you like traveling down the road and you were like, "Hey, babe, I got an idea."
No, it came out of, it stems from desperation. So I got married in college.
So you were hungry.
I was very hungry.
Got it.
My wife immediately got pregnant.
Uh-huh.
And so I was in college showing pictures, like sonogram photos.
Got it.
And it's called the sonogram, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
I always get that
I'm just
mammogram
imagining
thing
you
mixed
showing
up.
this to your
I was like, did I do it
classmates.
again?
If you're around showing mammogram
I know.
photos, man, there's
I
something wrong
know.
with that. I'm just gonna
I know. It's like, jeez, it happened again. I messed them up.
I'm sorry. That's pretty funny right there.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. Some things you can never unsee. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're good. So, wife got pregnant super early into marriage. We started our family. Had 3 kids in our first 5 years of marriage. And I was a teacher and trying to make life work and ends meet and do the things that I wanted to do as a provider for the family on a
Sure.
teaching salary.
Yeah.
And it was spring break one year, and it's like we could hardly afford to take a little weekend trip to Austin. And I remember having a moment just thinking, like, I
gotta
just
do better.
don't think this is going to work long term. I
Right.
think I have to do something else. So, like I said, it stems from desperation.
That's great.
What about you? How did entrepreneurship show up on your
mean,
doorstep?
Yeah, it was never really there. So my parents, I couldn't have grown up in more of like the stable W-2
Right.
household.
Yep.
My dad is an engineer. Your dad's
Same.
an engineer. My mom has been a registered nurse for
My mom was a nurse as well.
30 plus years.
We're not brothers.
Is this one of those Matthew McConaughey,
Yeah.
Woody Harrelson things going on here?
It could be.
Could be.
I do like that.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's a good dynamic.
But I'm Matthew. Okay, so I mean, yeah, I grew up in that household of just like, hey, get the income, invest in the 401k, you'll be set. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's proven to work out great for them.
Right.
But for me, like, I just wanted to try something different, and so when I got out of college, I knew I wanted to work for an ad agency because I wanted to experience what that was like. I knew it to be fast paced and ever changing, and just kind of like a learn on the fly. I was all
Right.
about it. I did it for a year, didn't have any kind of like emotional connection to it, and I was wanting that. Like, I was wanting to actually care
About what you
the
were doing.
work I was doing.
Right.
And
That's a big deal.
so that I made a switch into like, well, what about like youth ministry and serving in the church? Like, how could I do that? Because it was influential in my life growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I started working for the Pines Catholic camp in East Texas, and I did that full time. So I basically lived on site, and me and like 8 or 9 other missionaries basically facilitated retreats and things like that for about a year.
Right.
So that was contract work, and I had the opportunity to stay on.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was dating my now wife, and all I knew is I just want to be back in Dallas with her
Yes.
and still just try and figure something else out. And so that was the same thing. I was like, all right, I guess I was entrepreneurial enough if it meant that I needed to be so to propose to my wife and to live in the same place
Right.
as her. And so that's when Davis reached out because they were friends from college too.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got this chance to kind of reconnect, and he was just starting off in real estate and saying like, I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'd be good at it. Why don't you do it with me? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was that easy.
It was that easy
Yeah,
2
there's quite
months
a few
later.
phone calls. Yeah.
We spent about probably. I'm probably more of like the naturally cautious analyzer.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're
All right.
the more analytical of the two.
Yeah, and so I took probably however many of Davis's evenings away from his wife to like be on the phone with me and answer questions about how this might happen or that might work. And I know, looking back, I can't remember a single thing Davis said, but I know there were no answers because it's not his style. He would have just been like, "It's gonna be fine,"
Yeah.
and that worked.
Just jump. Don't worry.
Yeah, and
That
that-
chute will open.
and that worked well. And
Yeah.
so I was like, "Yeah, let's do that."
Yeah. So there you are. Did you have any idea how much pain y'all were about to go through early?
No.
Now,
I don't think so. No,
no,
ignorance
no.
was bliss.
Ignorance was bliss. Because, I mean, you have great positive mental attitudes, and it's obvious that you use humor to get through things. So, I mean, I'm there. I get you. But
We laugh so we don't cry.
so you don't cry, because there has to be those painful moments, man. Those painful moments
yeah.
exist, and of course that's the focus of the Deep Dark here. So it's funny how this podcast has turned out, because really it was to dive into our client's life and everything they go through and how we've helped, but it's changed. And really what's come out to be is that we have found that business owners, that especially ones, and we don't work for you guys, but the ones that we work for, man, the struggle is the soul of the brand. And so figuring out that struggle, then the audience that started listening started going, hey, man, I really want to work the current, and y'all are a little bit older, but the current generation really, really wants to work for themselves. And to know what is coming is really kind of a different deal. So that's what we're going to jump into, right? That's kind of where it is. So, my first question that I always start out with is what really sucked? Right? What was the first thing that happened? And y'all, as a team, can answer this, but what happened where y'all went, oh man, this is really not going to be good?
It's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time?
The first time.
I think like
Yeah.
6 months in.
Tell me about that.
You weren't there. No, you were there. You were there every day. The first time it felt like this really sucks, or this is not working,
Right.
was when we were getting into real estate. No experience in real estate, no experience in sales. Had never had a commission-based job in my life, other than like cutting grass at 11 years old in my neighborhood. And so we went into it. It's like, well, if we don't know what to do, let's just try everything. And we threw as much stuff at a wall as we could, and nothing really seemed to stick. And everything from like, let's do radio ads, let's cold call people, let's buy leads on Facebook, let's hand deliver note cards to people's front doors because we're too cheap to pay for postage. Like all kinds of stuff.
I love all that though. That's grit.
Oh,
That's,
yeah.
that's pure grit.
We
There was a
just-
lot of hustle in
We were
there.
just getting out there. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
a hustle mentality, and there was an
Yeah.
energy about it at the time, because it was just like feeling busy sometimes gives you this false illusion that you are. And that's what we felt. We felt busy.
Right.
We weren't productive. We weren't efficient. We weren't successful. We were busy.
Right.
And I think by that time you run out of gas. And so
Eventually.
it took us about 6 months.
Or money you have to eat eventually. Yeah.
So it took us about 6 months to hit that point where we're like, I don't like this. I don't like inside sales. I don't like outside sales.
I don't know if I like sales at all.
Yeah. I want to do something that can change the way we operate this business without tossing in the towel.
Right.
And so what we figured out was like, we just got to start focusing on the people we know. And we got to dive in and really buy into this idea that people would prefer to work with people that they know, like, and trust. So let's lean into that. Let's become all about that and let everything else take care of itself.
And it did.
And it did.
Did you process this thing out, this idea that you're did you sit down and go, hey, we really have to get strategic. This is what we failed at. This is what we're doing good, and this is what I think's going to work. I mean, because what I hear is that you're paying your tuition in the first 6 months.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
I think what we needed was to find that teacher, somebody who's done it before, that we could, look up to and respect and think like, this is where they are and this is where we'd like to be.
That
So
is
what did
so
you do?
important.
Yeah. We need to
Yeah.
see some model behavior for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're actually going to get to that question. So don't tell me about that just yet, because I need to
got
set
it.
the stage,
No,
right,
no, no.
for
Yeah, you're
for
good.
when that comes, because it is a common denominator in success, that there's someone that comes along out of the goodness of their heart, even if you do compensate, as you should, but that really kind of just like lights that match, right? And all of a sudden, where you need to go and why comes in. Quick story about me. I come from a family where it was just me, my mom, and my brother at one time, and I had one of the largest paper routes in the city in which we grew up in, right? Just simply because we need to eat, and it was pretty curious that I had that. But I had a client, a customer, and every day he had a front. Her name was Miss Julie to me, and it was at the front desk. And so I would go in, and it would be early in the morning, and I would knock on the door, and she'd come out, and she'd take the paper. Well, after doing that for a while, he owned a set of restaurants, and so he would. Eventually, she came out, and she said, "Well, he wants to talk to you. The boss wants to talk to you." And I said, "Great." I was like, "Why?" She's like, "He wants to talk to you." So he came out, and by the way, this was just enough money to where we barely got by. But he came out and he said, "How many people in your family?" And I said, "Well, there's 3 of us." And he handed me 3 coupons for hamburgers.
Oh, wow.
It was a big deal. It was a real big deal. I got to tell you, for a little guy, that was a big deal. Every day until football season came along, he handed me 3 more. And then my family would take over delivering during football season, and then 3 more for years until I graduated high school. Every day he gave us 3 coupons.
That's amazing.
Cool. But he said something to me that stuck, which was I was paying my tuition. And he said, "If you take care of people, they'll take care of you." And it was like, okay, I get it. I see how this business thing works, right? I take care of people, you take care of me. Because to be able to go and to eat well every day, which a hamburger was well to us, was incredible, right? It was a big, big deal, but it's never left me. So that person was the guy in my life, right? But in your life, so who was that person? What was the...
Gosh, anyone come to mind for you?
Was there somebody you started that mentored you, that helped you through that gave you some ideas that you said, well, or maybe it was a new employee that really knew what they were doing as you started to do things. But was it a father? Was it a mother?
We've been blessed with some great coaches that have coached us through a lot of these seasons of our company and of our professional development careers. Gosh, I mean, is it correct to answer even like books here? I mean, we've just we've read books and consumed content that just felt like divinely inspired at the right time.
Right.
Like just kind of lost, aimless. Like, gosh, I wish there was some way to systematize this selling and document this. And then we would, be introduced to this thing. And it's just like, this is just, it's earth shattering for us. And it was the perfect time.
Yeah. That was one of the first snowballs for us, was a particular book in like summer of 2018. So we're a little over a year into it. Still don't know where we're going. Just know that we don't like where we've been.
Right.
And there's a book called Ninja Selling that we came across, read, felt what Davis just described as like, this just hit me in the gut. Like, this is exactly what I needed.
What was its premise? I haven't read Ninja
It systematizes relationship-based selling of real estate.
Okay.
Which is like, that's exactly what we needed at the time.
Yeah. And so that book, which was a concept created in the 70s by a particular real estate agent in Colorado, was what springboarded us into so much future engagement with that content on a larger level, and then just the further growth of our company.
Oh, yeah.
So it just
changes like family trajectories in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And it's silly to say like it was a book. But it wasn't just a book. It was the philosophy and the ideals. And it was the thing that just resonated with things that we already felt. So to speak to a person, I'll speak to Davis here. Like, Davis in a lot of ways is like an older brother to me. And I'm the oldest of my own family. And so he's a couple of years older than me. And so I've been able to learn a lot from him because he also got married earlier. He's had kids faster than I have and older kids. So I'm like, he's a mentor in these different ways through life. And when we were doing our real estate stuff for the first 12 to 18 months of like, let's try everything and figure it out, paying our tuition, I was able to see like how Davis was finding his success because he was doing some of the stuff. Like he was trying the cold calls, he was trying the mailers, he was doing this and that and the other. But he was also just doing the church meetups, just having the dinners, just engaging at the baptism parties and the kids' birthday parties, just being in front of people. And it was like a natural conversationalist, naturally energetic guy. We share a lot of the same traits, but what he was doing without knowing it was applying that mentality to his business and just being a good friend, just being a good person, just being physically present and mentally present. And it was rewarding him in consults and listings and closings and income.
The giving mentality.
Yeah, 100%.
Trying.
And it was never the intent of other than just like, hey, I want to be in your life because I care about you. And that was just rewarded with hey, you're in my life. You care about me. Can you please help me with this big life thing?
Right.
So
There's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Man.
That's all of it. That's been the past few years for us.
In like our pre-podcast conversation, I believe a lot of that is somehow hardwired into us to a certain extent. You can learn it for sure, but especially today, it's not the go-to. It's not like where you started, the thinking that somehow I'm going to buy digital ads and then my business is going to blow up. That's a lie. It's a complete lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a thing out there that's called the go-to-market chart. You can find it on the internet, and it talks about price points, and it talks about yearly contract size for clients, and the amount that's going on. But what you'll find is, I'll give it to you shortly, is that for in real estate, it's not how much money you're making on the price tag; it's how much that actual house costs. And so when you get somewhere about the $150,000 mark for a yearly price tag, which most people aren't going to buy more than one house in a year, but you get above the $150,000 for a price tag or whatever widget or whatever service you have, what you find is the only thing that works is referrals based upon relationships. And that's a really crazy thing for people to think, because it takes just as much marketing in that referral piece as and I say marketing dollars. If you're going to go give money to charity X in which you're attending something, that's marketing dollars. But, as you go through, people really don't understand that there are different techniques and things that throughout there that make a huge difference. But referrals is actually a focus.
Right.
It's not something that happens naturally. It's, and it doesn't have to be manipulative. It's just you have to recognize that this is your task in life.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah, especially if you're selling.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that.
That's where that is.
And so that's where that book was so impactful, because the things that I just described about Davis were so innate. That was just how he is. But what he wasn't and what I wasn't was systematized.
Yeah.
Right.
Intentional.
Specific and intentional. Yeah, it's a good word for
That's
it.
a good learn. That's a good learn. So that you learn that out of there.
Yeah.
When, not to give your secret sauce out to the world.
No, it's all, we didn't write
We
it.
don't have anything.
Don't have anything.
That's secret.
But in that process, if you could tell the audience what does a process look like when you're pushing through that sales relationship piece, as y'all are thinking about, okay, if you had a CRM that you were going to plug that into, right? How do you check that path, or that you're doing the right thing for everybody? Or is it just somewhere in the gut that you're doing the right thing?
Oh no, that's probably a component of it. It's like a gut thing. So much of our business is like, our whole goal is to help people from where they are to where they want to go. And we know that the majority of people are moving due to changes that are happening in their life.
Right.
Like, you point to a time that you moved, like, take your past. You said you recently sold a house.
Yeah, empty nester.
What change was happening in your life
Yeah.
that would motivate you to move? Was it the fact that
Absolutely.
your kids just left the house?
Isn't that a weird dynamic?
It's not weird because we do it for a living.
Well, it is. Hey, truthfully, it is. The kids are out of the house. Unfortunately, we had our 20-year-old Dotson die at the same time. And then we had 2 kids that are out of the house, and you've got a good-sized house that you've built, and all of a sudden, crickets, right? It's quiet.
Yeah.
And you can't sit around all day. 50 is the new 30, man.
Oh,
Right?
yeah, totally.
And even though I may not look it, I got plenty of energy and I want to do things, right? So at that point in time, what I don't want to be doing is maintaining a 3,000 square foot house every weekend, right? I'll do that when I'm building a family because they're with me and we're teaching. But now
You don't need it.
I don't need it.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's figure out the buzzword.
Yeah.
Let's downsize.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Let's downsize.
So you've seen those old those therapy lists where it's like events or
Most
something.
stressful
Yeah,
events
most
in
stressful moments, and even
Right.
assigns like a score.
Yep.
Losing a spouse, that's 30 points or something. Like adding a baby, that's 15 points.
Right.
And it's like 100 items on there.
Uh-huh.
And, they're like, oh, watch out if someone gets to 80, in a year or something.
Yeah,
but
true.
we can almost apply that same thing, that same litmus test, and say like, oh, well, they have an 80. They're probably going to have a real estate need coming up.
Wow.
Yeah, the
Okay.
next 12 to 18 months.
So,
Right.
and we do that by just staying in contact. We call it flow with people.
Uh-huh.
And so when we get together with people, we're connecting with them.
Yeah.
We're asking them about how their life's going.
Right.
And then we're documenting and recording the changes that are going on in their life. And if people have enough changes, they're typically going to have a real estate need. And then people who have a lot of change, here's another theory for you. People who are undergoing a lot of change in their life are usually surrounded by other people going through a lot of change.
You wouldn't believe it, man. Everybody in my age group seems to be going through that same thing right now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're all talking about real estate agents.
Yeah.
You know, who did the right thing? Who did the wrong thing? Why did you dump this one? Why did you bring that one?
Right.
Yeah.
That and mortgage brokers, man. That's the other big conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because in our current economic state in this country, I'm lucky enough to be able to make decisions.
Awesome.
But a lot of people are like, man, I've got a 3% interest rate. There's no way I can ever move. I am locked in forever. And that's a scary moment to be in when you can't make a choice. Mm-hmm. Well, you always have a choice. But if you have the right real estate agent and you have the right broker and you have the right goals, it's really not as hard as you think it is, and maybe telling yourself stories otherwise.
It's so much of our job right now. And if you've seen any national statistics, you know that since 2022, home sales have declined.
Right.
And that's coincides with middle of 2022. We started to see interest rates rise.
Right.
Almost doubled in about a 6-month period.
Right.
And that's what you're describing, is people feel locked in, they feel trapped, and nobody likes either of those feelings, regardless of how good they feel about their interest rate.
Right.
And so what we find is it's not so much that change, like familial change, doesn't matter to them. It's about how much familial change has to happen in order for them to be that breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We don't want
the
them
tipping point just got a little further out.
Right, yeah.
You know?
You move the goalpost some because a 3% interest rate is like a happy thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you can experience a significant amount of pain with a change in your life or a significant amount of joy with a change in your life. And either of those just have to be enough to supersede the 3% interest rate.
Right.
And it's our job and our agent's job, what we're training them on, is to help people just see, like to get out of their own bubble for a second and realize, like, okay, this 3% is nice, but what is it keeping you from? And if it's nothing major, stay. If it's something significant, then consider the alternative.
Right. Because there are alternatives.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So funny enough, this is absolutely hilarious. So a lot of people are in my same boat because we thought, hey, interest rates are high, prices are high, we may not be able to sell for a while, and bam, it's sold. Oh, we hadn't found a house.
Yeah.
Right? We don't know where we're going.
Totally.
Do this. So you're going to laugh at this. So I was like, hey, no problem. We have to be gone in a couple weeks. We'll get this done. We'll just stay in the fifth wheel for a little bit. Right. And that's where we'll be. Don't worry. It's only going to be for 30, 60 days. We'll find something. By the way, this recently happened. And then so we found the most bougie park that we could put this fifth wheel in that was local. We get to work, and they have multiple pools and they have golf carts and there's golf clubs. And I'm going, hey, this is really weird. Right. But we're at the pool and, everybody at the pool is in the same boat we are, right? These are affluent people. They're good people. They're doing a good job, and they're like, yeah, we just can't find a home. They're not out there, and and then we start talking to other people, as drinks are being shared at the pool, and the other half of people there were real estate agents because they know this is where they need to be. This is the prime
fertile grounds.
Fertile grounds.
Well
right?
done.
Yeah,
a lot of people going through through life changes there.
Yeah. I was thinking to myself, I never knew that a market like this would have existed at the pool. This is really fun.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
So this point, this is where us, the real estate agents, would be having talks with you. Like, okay, what are your dreams?
Right.
Like, you've got the whole world in front of you. The world's your oyster.
Right.
What do you want to do? Where do you want to be?
Very entrepreneurial of you. You're trying to pull that entrepreneurism out of them.
Yeah.
How are you going to make decisions? How are you going to be brave? How are you going to be bold? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how did y'all come across this truth that you're talking about right now of life changes and how that is? Because it is a truth, and many people don't think about it because we're stuck in the W-2 world.
Yeah.
Right? We're stuck in that. I'm a firm believer that the world really wants you to live paycheck to paycheck.
I think it's set up that way for you to live just comfortably enough. What's that like that? The boiling thing?
And the frog.
Frog. There you go.
Water.
The lobster.
Yeah.
That's the lobster trying to climb out of the bucket. No.
Yeah. I was like, are you doing Jordan Peterson on me or what? We're gonna talk about lobsters.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What was the question?
So this truth that you
Where'd
came
it come
across
from?
about looking at these life-changing moments and were y'all sitting around one day with a couple beers and you just said to yourself, hey man, there's this common denominator here, and I don't think we're focusing on them the way they need to be focused on, because this is life changing.
Yeah, I wish we were that smart.
No.
I'd have to give credit back here to the ninja selling philosophy and the concepts found within that book.
100%.
Ultimately, what we read there were those pages, and I was like, that's it. That is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the thing about ninja selling, the thing about how we operate our business and referral-based marketing in general, it's easy to do, it's easy not to do.
Right.
And that's so much of the 6-year journey now, from discovering that point to here today. It's not about changing or reinventing the wheel. It's about like keeping the wheel going and continually pushing it. And so, that was where we discovered it and kind of just felt like transformed.
Well, it is
by
a
that
code
knowledge.
though, right? I mean, there's a code that got cracked there.
Sure.
There's a code.
But we're all about not reinventing the wheel. We think a lot of people who are smarter than us and who have like tried this stuff out, like we want to be receptive to the wisdom that people share with us.
Yeah. There are a lot of smarter people. The world is changing very, very fast, though.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things, and people really don't know how much work it takes on the backside in order for these things to come through for them, right? Especially if you're in a service base like what you're doing.
Sure.
And that code and the things that you're thinking about and trying to stay as ethical and moral and all these things as possible. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
But obviously you've been there when it didn't work.
Yeah. And I probably would amend that statement a little bit
Yeah.
more like when we didn't work.
Oh, okay. Well, dig into that a little bit for me.
Sure. Yeah. I would say it's like the system's pretty foolproof. It's just whenever we have not exercised the system or we've strayed from the path.
Right. Sets and reps, man.
It's a lot of that. And there was, we got into real estate in 2017 and we discovered the system in middle of 2018, but we still battled just even diving into real estate full on for about 3 years. And, we loved having, I don't know, escape ladders to other irons in the fire that, when things were hard and it's like, man, we would first criticize our industry or our job and just be like, the grass was always greener in the other fields.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we dabbled in other things and guess what? Our problems kept on following us. And then we looked up and we're like, man, the common thread seems to be us here.
Yeah. Well, you've hit on something though, because, a lot of literature says that, just what you're saying, that most people start out on this path and it goes through stages. But the first stage is when you get into it and you're like, life sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Life sucks. And then somewhere along there you realize, well, maybe life doesn't. Maybe I'm the problem here, right? I suck, right? This is tough.
Yeah.
And then you come to the realization, well, if I fix me, maybe it's not going to be so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if I figure out how to get through this thing, so I educate myself, right? I'm gonna go ahead and find somebody who knows. I'm gonna start reading real hard. I'm gonna know what I don't know, right? And then eventually it comes to, wait a second, maybe this is possible. Maybe that fire I had at the very first that got in my gut, maybe this is let me try this. And all of a sudden this isn't so bad.
Mm-hmm.
You just described our work history right there.
But then at the end, you're at year 6, if you pass year 5 on the entrepreneurial path, year 5 comes in and you're like, you know what? This is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
This is pretty good. I can do this. It's nothing up from here. I've already made it through the hard stuff, right? And it's kind of like working out. It really hurts at first, but then once you get there, you don't stop. So
there's got to be something significant about year 5, because it's the same thing that the National Association of Realtors tracks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I joined in 2017, you joined in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
In 2021, for you, only 10% of the people that got licensed in the same year as you were still there, and the same is for me.
Right.
It's nuts.
There's a lot of good studies about year 5. There's something magic about if you make it through year 5, that bell curve of diminishing return, you start to figure it out, and then all of a sudden you're like, I can get through this. And really and truly, if you do it right from that point on, it really starts to flourish. With all the other things that are coming in the world, even if you have a bad economy and things that happen, you have enough knowledge to where I can navigate this. Like you were saying earlier, here's the reason why home sales have slowed down.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the fact how you go to work. You just amend, right? You just you figure it out.
Because people still have change.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's still going to happen.
It is.
It's still going to happen. And, but so we talked about those things, but there had to be also a moment where you walked in one day and you're like, wow, we really succeeded.
We get a ton of satisfaction. So we're not just real estate agents, but we're also team leaders.
Yeah.
So a big part of our day, week is developing the real estate agents around us.
Got you.
And
that's obviously going shockingly well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
We have our wins.
depends on
and
what
we have our
day you call
losses.
me. But I would say that those are the days, like, man, when our agents like experience success, when their lives are kind of being transformed, they're adopting those healthy habits
Right.
and making progress towards their ideals and dreams. I don't know. That usually gets us going pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
We
it's
like
exciting.
Yeah, I was in a sales meeting the other day with a guy talking about building his teams.
Okay.
And he told me something which I have no idea how this works, but it seems like it would work, and I don't think I can make it work myself. But he said that when he has team members that seem to be a little down and they're telling the story, he makes them tell the story without any adjectives.
Can you
Tell
give
me
me an
that.
example of that?
Sure. Instead of saying, that's a rotten dude,
Yeah.
you say, that's a dude. And just to tell that story without any adjectives all the way through, no personal feelings. Don't tell yourself any stories. Tell me exactly the way life really is.
Yeah.
And through a lens without you adding your feelings into it. And it's
Yeah.
funny how when he's building teams, what he does is that way they operate on the truth.
Yeah.
And when people start to look things through the lens of the truth, and that comes to play, and they take the story they've told themselves out of it, things start to get better. They start to jive within those team members.
Yeah.
And I thought that's a lot of psycho work right there, man. But I get it.
I love that.
I get it, man.
You know what that
So
reminds me
about
of?
that. Sounds great.
Yeah. It reminds me of our coach. She'll ask us a question sometimes, so she can tell we're kind of getting in like a negative
Yeah.
pathway on something. She's trying to check us, and
Yeah.
she'll ask us like, "What's the evidence that this is 100% true?"
Right.
Or
What's the evidence that it's not 100% true?
Yeah.
and it forces you to take the adjectives out and give more factual
That's right.
information. And
Yep. Of
Yeah.
what it's really like, because feelings can get in the way sometimes.
Yeah.
Totally.
100%.
I mean, they are not to go old Star Trek and Spock on you, but there is a good piece in there to tell it for what it is, right? Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of where I have. So so looking forward, yeah. I mean, there has to be something forward, right? So your year 5, is there an epiphany that happens that says, okay, I'm going to breathe now, but I'm starting to look at the future?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, something happens.
I feel like there's we always have, and we have had some of those reflection points. We can look back and say like, oh, that was a turning point. And I think one of them was
Yeah.
the end of 2020. We spent all of 2020 playing the escape card, just like how
You
can
want
we?
to tell them what we did?
Yeah, I do.
This is our confession. Tom?
Yeah, this is our confession. The two of us and a friend of ours, Johnny, built a tiny house together, and not for ourselves, like literally to build it with the idea of like turning it into a separate business.
Like a construction company.
And like tiny houses were kind of hitting like their moment. They were
Right.
having their peak, their
Oh, yeah.
their moment in the sun. And so we're like, that sounds cool. And these things are outrageously expensive. I bet we can build one for less. And so that's what we did. We rented out a warehouse for like 9 months. We started developing
Wow.
these plans. I learned how to
Talk
do
about bootstrapping.
Yeah, I learned how to do SketchUp, and I like drew like a 3D modeling of it. I don't even remember how to do anything
This is
on
this
SketchUp
is a whole
now.
podcast. This is amazing on its
Yeah.
own.
And
Oh,
so
you don't want to hear about this
it's
one.
just so dumb. It's
Yeah.
just it's funny looking at it
I'm
now.
gonna laugh in like 6 years from now when you're like the the moguls of tiny homes,
No.
and you're like, yeah, we'll see. Watch.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Yeah.
will. I will say that we built something that was really cool. It was very well done.
Sure.
And we sold it for a profit to a guy in California. But I mean, we had all these
Kelp
plans.
farmer.
Yeah, he's a kelp farmer. Like literally,
Santa
would,
Barbara.
like put on his wetsuit, dive out into the bay, harvest kelp, bring it back, and then he would like dry it out and turn it into like omega-3 powder.
I know a lot of people love to live there, but I don't know how they afford to live there.
I don't know either. I mean, we sold it to a kelp farmer, for crying out loud.
Well, you
It's
know,
doing all right.
you know, and I'm not taking anybody away from that has celiacs, but I was really blown away that I went to the really nicest restaurant that it seemed like was on the coast there, and I think that's what all they had because it was all gluten free. So I was like, what do we eat? Kelp. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Might be a bigger market
Might
for
be a better
kelp
market than you
consumers
think.
than in Texas.
So you're
Okay.
talking about the kelp dude. What happened with
Yeah,
the
I
kelp
mean, this guy, he reached out to us. We had posted our completed tiny house online. And after a couple of weeks, he reached out, engaged in a conversation, flew down, saw the house, walked him through it. He's like, yeah, I want to buy this.
I mean, as chill as you can imagine. The most
Oh my
Californian dude
gosh.
ever.
He's such a nice guy.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure.
Incredibly nice.
Oh yeah.
Didn't put on deodorant since the turn of the century.
But maybe
And he had $100,000 in cash ready to buy a tiny house.
probably won the last surfing contest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was our 2020. It was like, it was fun. It was an
Yeah.
experience. But deep down, like you look at the root issue of that, and that was like, we were trying to escape.
There's a lot of running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm with you on that, but I some people call it the itch. The other day I had another buddy of mine who's very entrepreneurial that says it's not an itch, it's a disease. That once you start to see how to build a business and to do that it's absolutely a lot of fun if you can get to the right point, right?
Yeah.
You've created something that didn't exist before.
Oh, it's true.
Yeah.
And there's a high that can come from that for sure.
That's right. You've accomplished something, right? And you have
Yeah.
something to show instead of, I got another friend who tells me that the worst thing in life is to go through 5 days of misery for 2 days of escape in the W-2 world, right?
Gosh,
So-
ain't that the truth?
Isn't that the truth? And so, I mean, how blessed are we not to have to
Oh, yeah.
endure that? I love coming to work every day.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
I love Mondays. So
Mondays are great days.
Yeah.
I used to have what I called the Sunday blues, like when I
doesn't
was a
happen
teacher.
anymore.
I don't have the Sunday blues anymore.
Right. You know, I think there's another tell moment. It's not year 5, but and what we talked about mentors and everything else. It's really easier if you don't go it alone, right?
Yep.
Having the right partner is really makes all the difference. And I don't care if you bring less money. If you have someone to walk that path with you, don't be an island. But
Yeah, that's another episode right there.
that's another episode right there.
We're
But
filling your
We'll do that
calendar.
one except for the in lieu of the tiny home.
there you go. No, I want to hear all about it. I'm all. I think tiny homes are cool.
Yeah.
Oh, they're
But,
very cool.
Yeah, but you know the other piece of that I was trying to get to, and as I go through with partners, is that being around positive people, man, it just makes your day, right? And so here's the pivotal point, not the 5-year. It is when you take business phone calls from your partner on the weekend, and it doesn't infuriate you, right? When they call and it's a friendly conversation and you're figuring something out. The wife doesn't really care because it's only going to take 10 minutes, and you're not going to leave there angry after that phone call. That's a pivotal moment. What happened here? Why will I take this phone call? But if I'm working for somebody, I let it go because it's my weekend, right? There's something there that happens.
I think so.
Yeah. You've probably had it. You guys just drove down
Yeah.
to be on this podcast and had a
Yeah.
blast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I
I'm
mean, we
trying
would
to
spend
think of,
all
like-
Monday together anyways. Why not just do it in the car on the way to
There
College
you go.
Station?
True. I
There
feel
you
like
go.
we've done those calls from day one.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
But that's like the benefit of like we were able to operate able to operate a business together from day one as friends from day
Right.
one,
Yeah.
and then the fast friendship just grew.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I know it could have happened in the opposite way, but that was never really on our mind. We never really considered that alternative. It
Right.
was just like, oh, we're gonna be really good friends, and be partners in this business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we
And
had to learn how to be really good partners,
Yeah, that was the thing.
and that's
Yeah.
that's an ongoing thing. It's almost
I
like a
mean,
marriage.
It
Yeah.
is like it's
know?
funny you were to say that. I have another friend who he's a divorce lawyer, and he got called into a partnership in a business that was disintegrating, and they loved each other so much that they brought in a divorce counselor as they were having to sell off their different parts because they didn't know how they were. I was like, really?
I mean, it makes a
Okay.
lot of sense.
It makes sense though, right? I mean, I
I hate it, but yes, it makes sense.
It makes
Yeah.
sense. So was it originally just a handshake between you two? How did you solidify that partnership?
Oh gosh. Might still be too much of a handshake, to be honest.
That's so true.
I think it's like maybe one sentence in like a Google Doc.
Wouldn't call it legally binding, but it makes
Yeah.
sense to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've had to grow in some level of formality over the years, but
Yeah.
especially in the beginning, it was almost like an unspoken like understanding.
For
Right.
sure. For sure.
Yeah. Maybe I hope you don't need the divorce counseling.
No,
right
no.
now. Okay.
Hopefully we don't. But we like to ensure that we don't by,
Uh-huh.
you know, I don't know if I fully subscribe to that old phrase like good fences make good neighbors, but
Uh-huh.
that might be something that's applied
Yeah.
to, you know, a
So do you
situation
serve
like
two different
this.
roles? Is one like an implementer and one a visionary, or does that happen, or do you share that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So we were just actually, are you familiar with like Patrick Lencioni's Working Genius,
Uh-huh.
the widget, you know, thing? So we just took that assessment,
Yeah.
and we were looking at our strengths and stuff.
And even before that, it's like Patrick Lencioni's Working Geniuses is like one of 1,000 other things.
Sure.
Right.
And we've been doing that stuff for as long as we've been working together. Like,
Yeah.
So are y'all like a Patrick Lencioni EOS company?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do
Yep.
the
Gotcha.
entrepreneur,
All right. Yeah.
entrepreneur operating system. We like
Yeah.
it,
Yep.
and we've done. The thing is we've taken so many of those tests and come up with so many of the same answers.
Uh-huh.
Like
Mhm.
he's this, and I'm
Right
this.
next to him.
and I'm like we're like right here, and every graph and chart, like we're so similar.
Right.
And with the Working Geniuses was the first time we saw clear differences.
So what is it?
I am the discernment galvanizer.
Okay.
I don't remember my phrase. My
Just give you
two
two.
geniuses were wonder and tenacity.
Okay.
Yeah, and those were two of Davis's frustrations.
Yep.
So like,
Wow.
we
Oh,
were
definitely.
we finally found our opposites.
Got it. Well,
And it's true because it was such an enlightening moment
Uh-huh.
for me. Just like,
Yeah.
yes, this is where our frustrations that do arise in our partnership, it's come from this.
right.
It's whenever I'm not displaying the tenacity or the sense of wonder that
Right.
that you thrive off of.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It was great.
it's
I
been-
highly
yeah.
recommend it, especially for any partnerships.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's a thing. Somebody has to. There are those two distinct parts
Yep.
that have to happen, right? I mean, yeah. Back to the marriage piece. It's kind of the same things that happens there, right?
Totally.
So, what are y'all hoping for next?
Mm.
Right now, okay. So let me clarify that. So the other day, was talking to a guy, and I said, "What do you hope for next?" And he gave me what the market was going to do, right? And I'm not looking for what the market's going to do. I want to
Sure.
know
I
when
wish
you,
I could tell you.
what's the next opportunity where you get to take your shirt off in public?
Oh, that's
Right?
a great question.
Yeah.
Let's see. From a work standpoint, something that takes up a lot of our brain power and we're focusing on a lot is like we're looking for that trend bending moment for our agents.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we see a lot of our agents implementing the right things. Okay. And far too many, we've talked about the statistics of people dropping out before that year 5.
Right.
We say a lot of people quit right before the magic happens.
Isn't that the truth?
Oh, it is.
You're so close. You just
You're
don't
so
know.
close.
It's the
okay?
valley of disappointment visual that you kind of painted earlier.
Right.
That's where a
Yes.
lot of our agents can find themselves at times,
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
because we mostly hire like new to the industry individuals.
Right.
For the
So-
reasons you stated earlier. Well, it's like
No
we don't
bad
want them
habits.
no bad habits.
No bad habits.
Empty vessels.
I mean, not to derail you on the conversation the other day. I had a close friend that was going to take a sales job, and they were moving from being an educator to taking a sales job.
Yeah.
And I did everything that I could to paint the worst picture of what sales looks like.
Okay.
But at the end, I let them know. I said, but if you build a book of business in the next year and a half, you're going to go, why have I not always been doing this?
Totally.
Right? And I said, people are going to come, they're going to go, but you learn in a year and a half how to build a book of business, and all of a sudden you have income coming in, and you see how that works, and all of a sudden you see that you're the master and commander of your own destiny. Of course, God's grace. But as that goes, as you look at it, you say, wow, why was I not doing this before?
I know.
But yeah, I tried to talk them out of it early.
Yeah.
Just to know the pain.
And
Yeah.
I take that a step further, honestly. I know, Austin, you do too. It's like we'll look at a lot of our friends who we love so much, and we wonder why they don't take,
Right.
the the bull by the horns there and go out on their own and you know, take control of their destiny.
Right.
Because it's hard to watch, you know. It's hard to watch them go through the grind of the W-2,
the
9
gauntlet.
to 5. Goodness.
Oh man, I know. It is tough.
Yeah.
It is tough. I remember when I went through it. So, you know, I had done a lot of different jobs, and I'd been a W-2 guy, and I was still fairly young, and I moved into it and into really commission work, you know, and I will never forget. I had a house that I was doing well before I decided to go on my own, and I don't know what the itch was, but I had a house. It's on a golf course. I'm sitting there in the house. The whole back of it's sliding glass windows, and it's like 4:30 in the morning, and I'm staring out the window going, I have no idea what I'm going to do today. I have no idea how I'm going to make this work. There's not that much money left in the bank. I have what is this make money work for you thing? I do not know how, and I probably sat there doing that for weeks. I mean, I would move my feet during the day. I would do everything I could. I didn't know, but I tell you what, looking out that window at 4:30 in the morning after not sleeping all night is painful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a character building experience. There's no doubt.
Totally.
And I think all people need to go through it for at least a little while. I understand if you don't.
Yeah.
You know, I often ask people this, and we'll get back to your thing in a second, but I ask them 2 questions before I hire. What's more important to you, freedom or security? You have 2 seconds. Go.
Freedom.
I was supposed to answer same.
Yeah, when I didn't.
You didn't answer in time.
Well, it's
Trap
funny.
door opens.
It's funny. I can tell you if people will be successful in commission entrepreneurial work by that question. Because if you value freedom, as you're sitting there looking out the window at 4:30 in the morning, you say to yourself, "But at least I'm free. Nobody's going to fire me.
Yeah.
Nobody can tell me what I'm going to do next. This is up to me." But if you want security, go the W-2 route. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But that may be where you need to be, and that's a big part. But if you're going to run a business, and you think the security route, get ready. It's not coming.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like having a W-2, so many noble professions there. My wife was a nurse for 8 years before we had our first children, and so now she's full time at home. But I mean, such a good job. And I think the issue isn't the debate of this versus that. It's the issue sometimes is like give some consideration to the idea of being your own boss. Like believe in yourself enough to take that chance. And I'm not saying dive into the deep end on day one. I'm just saying like turn up a dimmer and turn down the other one.
Right.
Figure out a way to apply what you do in a contract-based world and just understand what your potential and the lack of ceiling you have over you.
Right.
And then just see if you like it.
Right. And then figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing I tell people is if you ever think about doing this, the first thing you need to do is get your personal finances in line.
That's a huge part of it.
It's huge. If you are credit card rich at this point in time, you're going to have to learn not to do it. I will tell you, I did one time build businesses through my credit cards. I was selling my product to myself, but you know,
Oh no.
I got through that pretty quick. I knew what the outcome was at the end.
Yeah.
But you know, it was just me having to figure it out.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's not good advice, by the way. But you know, it's But you have to make sure that that's in line, and because there is going to be a fair amount of landing strip that you have to get down before you reach the end, and you get to get out and enjoy your end, right? But
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, being real estate coaches, we have a lot of personal finance and just financial freedom discussions with our agents.
Yeah. Well, and to see the big picture, right? I mean, it's not just real estate; it's everything you do.
Yeah.
To look at the big picture, you could be an investor and have to learn how to live off of end of the year dividends. I mean, however that may be, you have to be ready for seeing the big picture and being good at what you do, right? Okay, so here, big question. So what is success to y'all? What is success? Because obviously you're successful. The business has gotten past year 6. You have as many years in business as you both have children. So, you know, what is success?
So we were just. Are you familiar with the book, The Happiness Advantage?
I know of the book, but I don't think I've read it. Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah.
And kind of, I think one of the key points the book's trying to make is like oftentimes what we'll do is we postpone our happiness until we reach that point of success.
Delayed gratification.
Sure. But the problem is that we'll typically move those goalposts.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Like, hey, I'll be happy
Uh-huh.
once I get that promotion. I'll
Right.
be happy after we have our first child.
The American dilemma.
Sure. I love that.
Yes.
That rings true.
First world problems that we don't know how to handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like Austin and I, like we both have like personal and company, like what we call our like big, hairy, audacious goals.
Yeah.
But a lot of like, I think what we're both trying to focus on right now is like, how can we acknowledge the success in our current state as well? It's that balance, because I believe we have to have a little bit of like a discontent nature.
Sure.
You're better at this than I am, because his genius is wonder. And
Yeah.
he's always wondering like what that ideal looks like, and is like dissatisfied when he sees that gap between his current state.
Yeah.
And
I
but
applaud that though. I mean, that's part of growth.
yeah, we need that. We need that.
Yeah.
But we don't need it to a point where it's disturbing our peace.
Right.
You know, I don't want to look up or look back in like those lost years.
Right.
In the company and family setting.
Yeah.
Where it's like, why didn't I have a good opinion of myself there?
Uh-huh.
I view myself as like unsuccessful.
Right.
I don't know. What are you thinking, bud?
Yeah. What is success? I'll take it back to one of the core teachings that we're instilling in our brokerage is we want to focus on 3 main categories of your mindset, your skill set, and your actions.
Mm-hmm.
And really what that comes down to in a broader sense is like, how can you control the things that you can control and let go of the things that you can't?
Mm-hmm.
So in my mindset, how can I practice positive thinking and having a growth mindset versus a fixed?
Sure.
In my skill set, how can I commit to the idea of mastery and a profession and apply myself in such a way that's like, I'm not in business just to be mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in business because I want to provide a good and a service. And I owe it to myself and to God to practice those skills to the best of my own ability.
Because you want to be a good steward of those gifts that he's given us.
Sure.
So it's to grow into knowledge and to understanding. And to
Yeah.
actions, I think, is all about consistency.
It is.
How can I practice that day in and day out without growing in reservation or becoming tired or getting burnt out?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I think that's where it goes back to, okay, by having a healthy handle on where my happiness is rooted and where it's not.
Yeah.
And by having a healthy understanding of what I can control and what I can contribute and what I can't.
Right.
And having those clear boundaries, I think, has made for successful moments. And I'm trying to just build moment after moment until it feels like a straight line.
Like a straight line. In my family, when the kids were young, because kids, as you know, because you have plenty of them, they can get a little bratty sometimes, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
all the time. So we had a saying. Now it was easy on me. I only had 2 kids, but I would always say, "Do you have a positive mental attitude?" And we started that early. Do you have
Love
a
that.
positive mental attitude? Well, that moved into shortening to PMA. Now, many times in the morning, it doesn't happen as much now that they've gotten older, but especially through the college years and before that, when the stresses on kids are beyond today, is that there was a group text in the family, and it would just be PMA that they would send out, and everybody would check in with a PMA at the beginning of every morning,
Love
right?
it.
And it just became a part of our life, thinking about how to do that. But I do want to tell you a story. We have a client which is Cleaner, and Cleaner is owned by Chris Thompson. And Chris Thompson spent a better part of his life as a Green Beret, and his positive mental attitude is beyond. I mean, it's really incredible. But he often calls me and tells me that morning what he's thankful for. And the other morning he called me and he told me that I am thankful for my clean teeth. I was like, really? He's like, hey, everything in my life isn't perfect, but right now I just noticed my teeth are really clean. You know how many times I've been out there in the field and in places where I didn't get to brush my teeth, and man, I'm just thankful for. And I thought, it's just the little things, man. Just one step at a time every day, and to focus on those. It was great.
Yep.
If y'all haven't met him, y'all need to meet him. He's an incredible dude. He's sitting out there.
Sounds like a great guy. We'd love to meet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's we start our day trying to get to that same level of gratitude.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
we're writing down what we're grateful for every single morning.
And that's what it takes, because at the end, like you said, this life is fragile and it's hanging by a wire, right?
Yep.
And so you can't waste any time being happy, thinking about the grandiose things that are going to come about. But we also work for reasons.
Yes.
y'all are feeding people. There are families that are making their living off of what you've built, which is a huge weight. But that's you can be thankful for that at the same time, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's all I got. That's all I got.
Man.
for
That's
you
all
today.
we needed.
That's a bunch. That's a bunch. But we've covered a whole lot of stuff. Any parting wisdom from y'all?
Man.
Super thankful for you having us on.
Yeah,
Oh, it's gonna be great.
really are. I would say one thing that we really hang our hats on or are just so grateful for, speaking of gratitudes, is we both committed to the idea. Like, this was before we knew about the happiness advantage, before we knew about the philosophies that have become an integral part of our lives, was when it comes to the context of like having a family and being like a good husband or a good wife or spouse to your partner. It's like we committed to starting our families and having children before we attained X level of financial well-being, before we attained X level of status or symbol, because it was never about that. And we really, we had the chance to be interviewed not that long ago and are being put into a magazine next month for real estate top producers in the DFW area.
Awesome.
And that was like the key message I wanted to come across. Like, between the two of us, we have 9 children, and all of them are under the age of 9.
9 is the oldest. Yeah.
9 is the oldest. And we wanted people to help. We wanted to inspire other people to think like, hey, you
Right.
can start your business. You can achieve great things. You can do all this within the context of raising a happy and holy family. And in fact, it's the reason we are here today. It is not, that was the cause and effect.
Sure.
Totally.
It's good, man.
Yep. We're
It's
not
good stuff.
sacrificing our careers for our family.
No, never
know?
should.
Yep.
Never should.
And we're not
Absolutely.
sacrificing our families for our career.
There you go.
They work hand in hand.
Well, if all of us fails, you can build a tiny home,
That's so true.
and I bet you build 1 million of them, and I bet you you do better than what you already
Yeah,
do.
text us where you're staying. We'll pull ours up next to
There
yours.
you go.
We'll chat by the pool for a
Right,
couple
man.
daiquiris.
I'm telling you, I'm all down for that, for sure. All right. Well, thank you guys. I really do
Thank you,
appreciate your time and you making the trip down here. And
It was a
the
pleasure.
conversation. It's fun.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a good time.
All right. Cool.
Thanks for having us.